This is a gathering of priestesses. I'm so glad you could join us this evening. And this is our 52nd edition. That means we have filmed one whole year worth of shows. Actually, we've done it in less than a year, which we kind of put it to the power to start out and managed to get the first 17 shows done in 6 weeks. But since then, we've done one a week, and with the exception of a couple of weeks, and we're up to number 52. So we want to celebrate. Yay! This is our first year anniversary. We'll do the first year anniversary again sometime in June, but hey, we always want to celebrate every chance we get. We have with us this evening the lovely Molly Remer. And is that how, am I saying your name the right way?
Remer. It's Remer.
Remer, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure. And Molly is an expert in the Red Tent Society and does Red Tent organizations. She's written a book called Womanrunes with Shekinah Mountain Water, who we had, who was it we had with Shekinah's a memorial on the show?
Ruth Barrett did. Ruth Barrett.
Ruth Barrett, yeah. And
the lovely Ruth Barrett.
The lovely Ruth Barrett, and I believe we still have the Shekinah's gift, which was some songs from Shekinah's CD, available on the Gathering of Priestesses group. So if you'd like to know what she sounds like, we'd love for you to have that. We'd also love for you to buy her CDs. I know that her children are still selling them. And we are, you know, really pleased with the way things have turned out over the last year. I just sent out a notice for people to come on the show, and I think we're booked now through probably through the end of August. But if you're interested in being on the show, please let me know. You know, you don't have to have written a book. You don't have to be an expert. All you have to do is be interested in either talking about priestessing or talking about or being a priestess or just telling us what your opinions are. Of course, you're going to get our opinions back. This is a conversation. It's not an interview. So the way the show works is we just kind of go back and forth and talk about who's here and what's going on. And we are so delighted that we get the chance to talk with you across the airwaves, so to speak. And before I get started, I do want to send out our prayers for those people in the Southeast who are currently experiencing absolutely awful weather. I think I'm experiencing awful weather. I'm in Oceanside, and it's only 64 degrees today, and I had to turn on my heater. So I'm going to whine a little bit, but that's just me. That's not exactly what they've been having in Houston and Austin and Dallas, and I'm sure Atlanta is now getting the brunt of it. So I send my prayers to them and to all of those who are experiencing bad weather. And we have with us, of course, this evening our lovely co-host, Miss Catherine Ravenwood from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Catherine was up in Santa Fe today, so she can give us the update on what's happening in the city different. And we have with us, as I said, our lovely guest, Miss Molly Remer. Remer. And Molly, so tell me, what drew you on to the path of a priestess?
Well, I knew you were going to ask this question, so I should have my answer all ready for you. But it's been a winding path, I would call it. It's been an unfolding path, and kind of a it's taken quite a few years. So I've been involved with like women's empowerment and social justice work for pretty much my entire adult life. Worked in domestic violence shelters and did groups for battered women and that kind of thing. And I have been in birth work for a number of years, doing childbirth education and doula work and working with pregnant women. And birthing women, and that's where I feel like the seed was planted, or that original kind of call was in that work with women. And it wasn't until 2007 I went to a Cakes for the Queen of Heaven training, a facilitator training workshop at Elliott Chapel in St. Louis. And we did this whole, it was a train the trainer thing, so they were training the people there to be facilitators of this Cakes for the Queen of Heaven program. And we sat in the closing circle, and I'd been so involved with the pregnancy and birth and working with women in those ways. And suddenly I looked at that group of facilitators, and they were sitting in the circle, and we had our goddess gowns on, and I had this feeling of, this is what else there is for me. It's not just about pregnancy and birth. Like, that whole mother stage is really great and everything, but there's a whole other, I want to celebrate the entire life cycle, the entire woman's life cycle, and all those important transitions and passages and life changes, and I don't want to just focus on pregnancy and birth anymore. And so that was this epiphany kind of moment for me at that training. And then several other things happened, and I have this special place in the woods behind my house. And I went down there one evening, and I stepped out on the rocks, and I heard in my head kind of the phrase priestess rocks. These are the priestess rocks. And I kind of stood there for a minute, and I thought, oh, this is what they're called. This is what they are. And I didn't think I was the priestess necessarily. The rocks we're talking about. It was just the rocks themselves. And I started doing women's circles and facilitating women's retreats and doing seasonal gatherings and seasonal rituals and that kind of thing. And then in about 2012, I became ordained with Global Goddess. And also in 2011 is when I started at Ocean Seminary College in the Women's Spirituality program there, working on the doctoral degree in women's spirituality. And so it really started unfolding from that 2007 moment and has continued to unfold up till now.
Well, that sounds like you have had an interesting journey. Now, I know in that journey, you've also managed to be a birth goddess yourself and to actually have some babies, and I know that you just had a baby.
Yes, I did.
Let's you bring us up to date.
Okay. Well, I had my first baby in 2003. Oh, I had my first baby in 2003, so he's 11 now, 11 and a half. And then I have another son who's 9, and then I have a daughter who's 4, and then I have my last baby who was born in October, the day before Halloween, so October 30th. I had Tanner at home in the middle of my house in a birth pool, and all my children have been born I had one in the birth center and the rest have been born at home, and my mom had all home births. I was born at home too, and it's just kind of one of our family connections there. And so yes, he's 6 months old now, and keeping us all busy, keeping his brothers and sister entertained,
and keeping everybody awake, I'm sure. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to brag about your children there. 4 of them. Wow. And I noticed the last one, the Tanner you referred to as your last baby. Does that mean he's the last one you're going to have, or the last one you had?
It's the last one I plan to have. He's the last one I plan to have. So.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm getting a little old to keep going. No, I'm not. I feel like I've been childbearing and rearing for quite a few years already, and I'm ready to kind of bring that chapter to a close with one last sweet, delicious little baby with a fuzzy little head.
Well, I think that's wonderful. What I wanted to let you know is you get to keep doing it as long as they're around, whether or not they're 45 or 4 or 5. But Raven, Molly is in Missouri, and I just realized that you have relatives that are barreling towards that state themselves, although they're going to be in a different area. She's in Columbia, I believe. Columbia, Missouri?
I'm actually in Rolla.
Rolla.
Outside of Rolla.
Really? My family heritage goes back to Rolla, Missouri.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah, my grandfather was with the railroad.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've got family roots in Rolla, Missouri.
Okay, well, I was born and raised here. My parents both came from California in the 70s, and they did the back to the land movement, kind of. That's how they ended up coming from California to Missouri. And so then I was born here and have lived in this area pretty much my whole life. I went to graduate school in Columbia and then came back and bought property and built a house here outside of Raleigh. I actually live in the woods about 15 miles south.
Yeah, I've never been, but got family roots there.
Oh, that's funny. Nice connection.
Small world.
Well, I thought that I would mention it since we were discussing the fact that Raven has relatives that are moving from Arizona to Missouri, and you know, it's just not often you hear, you know, somebody's moving to Missouri. They're moving way from Missouri.
Oh, I love Missouri. It's where my heart is.
Yeah, they're thrilled to be moving to Missouri. Yeah, they can't wait.
I love it here, and I always say that, you know, if I can have a women's circle here in a red tent and do rituals and gather the women here in Raleigh, then you can pretty much do it anywhere.
Right. That's right. Molly, when you were at this circle you were telling us, this Queen of Heaven, what is that?
That's a Unitarian Universalist curriculum, Cakes for the Queen of Heaven, that was Shirley, I can't think of her last name. Shirley Ann Rank wrote it originally in the 70s, and it's conducted in a series of classes over 6 weeks that covers goddess. It seeks to answer the question of what would the world have been like if you had grown up with an image of the female divine, or if you had grown up with the image of the goddess, like in your mind from childhood. What would the world look like? How would the world be different? So it takes you through like a 6-week journey through goddess history, basically, or history, and goddess traditions from different cultures and those kinds of things. So it's a Unitarian Universalist feminist theology curriculum. Okay. It's really wonderful. And there's a second half. There's 2, and then they also have the Rise Up and Call Her Name curriculum. I don't know if you've done that. I did that last year with the women in my community. We worked on it through a whole year. We did the Rise Up and Call Her Name program as well.
Yeah, I want to give some respect to the Universalist Unitarian Church. If any of you are unfamiliar with them, they have a number of opportunities for people, whether or not you are Jewish, Christian, or pagan, or anything else, to be part of their church. They have a program called CUPS, which is the Covenant of the Unitarian Universalist Pagans, and it's always been an interesting group, and so they come out of that great transcendental relationship that occurred in Boston and out of England, and they're a great church. If you have no church and you'd like to go to see people who have a spiritual background but not necessarily a religious one, or a religious dogma, I would say.
I always say that the UU Church is what introduced me to the goddess, because I've been a Unitarian Universalist for my entire life without knowing it. I have a master's degree in social work, and I pretty much social work and UU-ism go very hand in hand. I just didn't know it at the time, and I went to my local Unitarian Universalist church, and that's where I saw the postcard for Cakes to the Queen of Heaven. And I had previously, I didn't identify as a pagan, I didn't identify as Wiccan, I'd read all that literature, or not all the literature, but lots of different books, and I thought, this doesn't quite match. I don't feel Wiccan, I don't feel pagan, like, where do I belong? And I was at the Unitarian Universalist church, and there was a postcard for Cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and it said, part of the UU Women in Religion, part of UU Women in Religion Committee. And I thought, what's this? And from there, I found Carol Christ's Why Women Need the Goddess article and all these things, and I thought, aha, like, this is it. This is what I've been, this is the match for me. So I credit the UUs with introducing me to where I am now.
Well, you know, one of the things we always like to do on this show is to talk about a particular deity and say who she or he or what they are. So since you have identified yourself with the goddess, would you say there is one particular goddess that you've identified with more than others?
I do identify. I have this the connection, which I think I experienced during case as well. But I really connect with like ancient Paleolithic goddess figures, like the goddess of Willendorf. So I feel more connected to that numinous kind of great goddess energy, like of the universe. That's really ancient. But that said, I also feel like I connect with Gaia and with Brigid. Our business is called Brigid's Growth. She's kind of our namesake and inspired the business that I have with my husband. And so I connect with Brigid, I connect with Gaia, but I kind of at the core, at the root, I go back to that great mother, Earth Mother, kind of, you know, goddess of Willendorf type of imagery that I connect with.
Well, I love the great goddess and the old images, and I know something about Brigid, but I don't know much. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about Brigid?
Okay, well, so Brigid is perfect for my family, which I'm sure she's perfect for many things. But I mentioned before the birth and doula and childbirth connection, and so Brigid has been known for a long time as kind of well, in the Christian tradition, she's the Catholic saint that watches out for mothers and babies and midwives, and I've been really involved for years with midwifery activism too, and legalizing. Midwifery used to be a felony in Missouri until a couple of years ago, and so I was involved with the decriminalization of midwifery in Missouri and served as their newsletter editor for a lot of years, and went to the Capitol to speak to legislators about midwives. And so Brigid, super connected to the birth and motherhood and midwifery angle, but then also my husband's a blacksmith, and he's been a blacksmith and a bladesmith for a number of years, and so he's into metalworking, and so we've got Brigid with the forge, you know, and the hot metal, and the Brigid of that sacred flame in many ways, and then also she's the goddess, she's a triple goddess of and also poetry and writing and the written word, and so I write poetry and have always been a writer, and so to me there's that triple goddess connection there of basically my entire family's life purpose and the things that we do. So she was a natural complement to what we were trying to do in the world.
So
we make pewter goddess jewelry. I do the sculpting and the molding, and then my husband does the metal casting, and then we do goddess sculptures. I do the sculpting of the original figure in clay, and then he does a mold in silicone and then casts it in resin too. So we primarily do birth goddesses for people who are pregnant and want to set up a birth altar or fertility and that kind of stuff. But we make red tent goddesses, and we make spiral goddesses and all kinds of different necklaces and things like that are all custom created by the two of us. It's a real effort of co-creation. Because I do the original figure, then he carries it on from there and does all the casting and the work on finishing the individual pieces.
Well, that sounds fascinating. So do you have any of your pieces that you can grab there and show us?
Yes. I don't know if I can. They're pretty small.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely.
She's our little birth goddess. And there's just a plain little pregnant figurine. And then we have others. I have one this one's got a little baby.
Oh, wow.
And then I do a little collection.
Well, those are sweet.
Oh, great. So if somebody were interested in that, where would they go? You have a website?
Yes, we have a website. It's brigidsgrove.com.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that that's on the replay. And do you also do custom articles? It sounded to me like you might do some custom things for people who have...
I started out doing custom work, and then we found that we had enough people interested in what we made that doing customs became impractical. So what I do now is we'll do custom in terms of color, or I usually do is I take an idea from someone. So I had someone ask recently about a goddess from someone who had a mastectomy, and so I sculpted the figure for a pendant with one breast for that person. But then I made a mold from it, and we make those available to anyone who wants to buy them now. So the idea was a custom request, but the individual piece wasn't only made for one person. Does that make sense? They kind of, or I have, like I also do work for women who have had miscarriages and infertility, and so we have a couple of pieces specific to women who have had miscarriages, and some of those have been by request. You know, do you have anything to honor this experience? And I say, not quite yet, but I will soon.
So I want to go back to another term that you flipped by really quickly there. You said your husband is a blade master?
Bladesmith. Bladesmith.
So he makes blades?
Yes, knives.
Knives. Swords?
He has not made any swords. He makes knives and does other blacksmithing work with hooks and scroll work and that kind of thing. So, but no, he's not. He's never quite gotten to the sword level yet. that's on the subject.
I just figured with my sword friend here, Catherine Ravenwood, we better mention if there's any swords available out there.
No sword.
Are they ritual knives, or are they practical utility type knives?
Practical.
So cooking, hunting.
So we've talked about blending our genre and making ritual knives instead. But right now they're for hunting knives and that kind of thing.
Nice, very nice.
Well, that sounds great, and the reason I ask that is because I know a lot of people who are particularly women who are witches and Wiccan want their athame to be made individually, yes. And then also, frankly, I've always thought that the idea that you can't give somebody a knife is ridiculous. So I think it's a great idea, personally.
Give someone a knife.
Well, I'll keep you posted.
You're not supposed to give anybody a knife because it'll cut the cords. And but on the other hand, there are some people I would give knives so it would cut the cords.
Well, that would explain the breakup of the dissolution of one of my old boyfriends. He gave me really nice knives for Christmas, and everything kind of went to hell. Wow, I didn't know that.
You're supposed to make them at least give you a penny.
Oh, no, he didn't do that.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so now the other thing is, Remer is your maiden name, right?
No, that's my married name.
Your married name. All right. Mm-hmm. So I presume at one time or another it probably came out of it's Teutonic or Northern Europe somewhere. So how did you get involved with the runes?
Oh, well, that is interesting. That's an interesting story, if I do say so myself. And I'm specifically connected to the Womanrunes, which Shakina Mountain Water invented in 1987. Mm-hmm. And which 1987 was I was about 8 or so in 1987, but she invented them in this flash of inspiration that she had. She said she experienced a goddess lightning strike of inspiration, and like the priestesses of old, the goddess spoke through her and delivered these Womanrunes from beneath her pen in the space of a single afternoon on summer solstice in 1987. And so, and she passed away in 2007, and in 2012, I was reading a back issue of Sage Woman magazine, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Sage Woman magazine. I was reading a back issue of Sage Woman magazine that was from 1988. I was reading it in 2012. And there was an article in it about Womanrunes. And they leaped off the page at me. It just says, wow, what is this? What are these? How can I learn more? And so I tracked down some fairly old information about them and started making little rune sets and doing this work with Womanrunes, and then I too began to sense kind of something more behind them, and I started to write interpretations to go with them, because what Shakina had created was this 41 symbol system of runes that were all female identified symbols. So there's a spiral and a moon and a dark moon and a sun and the dancing women and the cauldron and a witch's hat and all this neat stuff. And she'd come up with this 41 system, this 41 symbol system, but they each had a name, but that was it. There was no other interpretation information or kind of what they meant. So I would make these sets, and I use them with my friends and in rituals and things. And people would say, but what else do they mean? Like, how do we read these, or how do we use these more fully? And so I started going down to the woods with them one at a time, and it took me about 18 months. But over the course of 18 months, I took each one and kind of felt into what it meant and what it had to say, and like what was behind that symbol, and I ended up writing a book of the interpretations. And after some time, ended up getting into contact with her estate, with Shakina's children, and they agreed to let me publish a book of the interpretations that I had created for the Womanrunes. And then we created a card deck that goes with the book as well. And so now that's work that feels really, it just really connected with me in a powerful way. But I don't have a connection per se to the ancient runes. I have a connection specifically to these Womanrunes, this specific very neat type of system. That's where my connection is.
Well, I was just wondering, because when we did Becoming an Oracle, runes were one of the oracles that we did, and we did it with the guidance of Freya and Odin, of course.
Yes.
Can't do it without Odin. And I knew nothing about them. I mean, I was channeling the journeys. But as far as that particular oracle, it was a total blank slate as far as I was concerned. I'd never spent any time with them, and I was very lucky that when we did the class, we had someone who'd spent like 25 years studying the runes, and I never heard of Womanrunes, and I'm sure if we had ever heard of them, we would have loved to have included them in the Becoming an Oracle class and Becoming an Oracle program, and which, by the way, is available, and it's a 7 CD set with 19 journeys that we did with Nikki Scully. And but Freya is listed as a fertility goddess on the Wikipedia list of deities. So even though you may not have any connection with the Old Norse ruins, I think that there's something there to look at, because Freya and I love Freya. In fact, there's no way for me to show you this. I've got this wonderful tapestry over here that is basically Freya with her house cats leading her chariot. And but yes, that's fascinating. So I like the idea that you went into the woods and kind of brought that back out. I mean, that's one of the ways that I tell people to learn the tarot, is take one card at a time and experience that card. So, Raven, have you ever heard of these before?
No, I haven't.
Well, obviously you need more publicity.
Yes, I know. So if, I mentioned my website before, but if you go to bridgetsgrove.com, there is a free starter kit. If people sign up for the newsletter there's a free starter e-kit with the Womanrunes, and it comes with some basic information and a little printable rune set, so you can print them out and cut them up yourself and use them that way if you want to. And of course, I do have the book. I have it here.
So have you, there you go. Hold it still. There you go. Lovely.
And it has
Did Civil
finished
Publications do that? Was the publisher Civil Publications, or did you do it?
No, I did it. I did it.
Because Civil Publications got in touch with me and really liked your cover. So.
Oh, really? My husband drew that.
Hold it up again, please. And then
pull it back towards you.
Okay, and now talk so you're on the screen.
Okay. Yes. So my husband drew the cover.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I really like that. As I mentioned with our sculptures, I love that co-creative process where if we joke that if I'd written it by myself, all I'd have was a Word document, right? And if he had done it by himself, all he'd have was a great cover, and that would be it. So it took both of us to birth this whole process into the world. So I do also have a Womanrunes immersion e-course coming up.
Do you make the runes then? And does he make them and cast them in metal and you sell those?
No, we do it as a card deck because of the labor-intensive process of making 41 individual pieces. You know, it would be they'd be about $20 each for each rune, which would be way too much for people to handle. So we do the card deck instead that have the symbols printed on them. So.
Right.
So show us one of the symbols. Can you do that?
Yes. I'm just going to randomly pick one and see what we get.
All right. Well, let's see what our reading for the show is.
See what we get. Yeah. Aha. Okay. So we got the hearth, the rune of nurturance.
Pull it back towards you and hold it.
And caring.
Pull it back
caring
towards
for the home.
you. Pull it back towards you so we can see it. That's good. And then you can tell us about it.
Okay, so it's the hearth, the rune of nurturance and domesticity. So that's an interesting tie-in to the Freya connection that we mentioned a minute ago.
Yeah, Freya's about as domesticated as me. So anyway. So you've got the Womanrunes. You are doing massive mothering. I can't imagine having 4 children. I could barely manage 2. I'm truly remarkable what you're doing, and bless you, and may you get through their teenage years with grace and ease. But you're also doing the Red Tent Society, or Red Tent work. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. As I mentioned, I've done just women's circles and spirituality retreats for a couple of years, for about 5 years or so. And more recently, I decided to broaden our circle in the form of a red tent. So instead of having like a goddess circle, which is essentially what I was doing before, the red tent really opens it up to women from all backgrounds and all belief systems, and so the red tent is a woman honoring space that welcomes all women, kind of regardless of what the other belief systems they bring with them. They can just be together and share that connection, kind of to that woman spirit within all of us. That's how we're connecting, is woman to woman, and there's no specific shared belief system required in order to participate in the red tent. And so we do a red tent circle in town. Like I said, in good old Rolla, Missouri, we have people coming to the red tent, and I do it on a monthly basis. Other women in other communities have a red tent that's open. It's open more than once a month. Mine's just, we do it on the new moon, the Friday of the new moon each month.
So let's presume I just landed from Mars and I don't know what the red tent is. So so explain what the red tent is and what's the relationship to women.
Okay, so the red tent, in terms of that actual phrase, the red tent, comes from that novel by Anita Diamant, who wrote The Red Tent in 1997. This was a reimagining of the biblical story of Dinah and her experience in with who was she? She was one of the, she Jacob's daughter? Well, anyway, it's this tribe, so it's the wives, the biblical wives of this time period. And in her story, in Anita's novel, they have a red tent where they go to menstruate or they go following childbirth, and it's this woman-only space where the women retreat from the hustle and bustle and the rest of the community and are secluded in this red tent. And she drew her inspiration from moon lodges, from Native American cultures, and evidence from history of there being these gathering places or these areas of seclusion for women when they were menstruating. And so we know that some cultures have, like, you know, a menstrual taboo, or they isolate women who are childbearing or who are bleeding. They isolate them from the community, almost in a, you know, a kind of like a shameful way, or they're unclean. So that's kind of the reputation that has followed that tradition. But in the story, in the book, she re-envisioned that tradition as not being about being unclean or dirty, but as a seat of power. And so women withdrew to kind of regroup their power, and then they would return to their tribe or return to their community with this powerful medicine that they had gathered during this intuitive, introspective, quiet time where they were taking care of their bodies and taking care of themselves in the tent. So that is that connection is what the modern red tent circle and the modern red tent movement is based in. It's this honoring and respect for our cycles and our bodies and our lives, really, of women across the reproductive spectrum, across all types of experiences. Those are held and heard and honored and nurtured in the red tent space. It doesn't matter what you've experienced or what you've been through. There's a space for you there, and we can hold that space with tenderness and appreciation and celebration. There's a lot of celebration.
Well, I know in the African tradition, it was believed that a menstruating woman could steal a man's power. And so therefore they were separated away and given the opportunity to go to a hut, which frankly, if I had been an African woman back in those times, and I'm sure I was, I probably lived in that hut because I wouldn't want to be messing around with them men and their demands, and it's like, you know, I can go over there and you can't come there.
Right, and that's kind of the idea, is that maybe it was used to isolate women or reject them, kind of, but in secret, they really know what was going on, and this was a time when they didn't have to cook for anybody or do any dishes or take care of the kids. They could just sit in the hut or sit in the tent, and so it might have looked different on the outside than what the inner experience really was. So.
There's always the inner and the outer experience,
That's right.
Particularly when you're dealing with women. You know, so, well, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure, because not everyone knows what, you know, some of us are even so old we didn't have to experience the red tent or never read the book or whatever.
The red tent's actually open for women at all points in the life cycle. So we have menopausal women come, and we haven't had any maiden girls come yet, but it's open to girls all the way through you know, as old as anybody wants to be, they're welcome to come.
Yeah, one of the traditions I love is the Navajo tradition, which is changing woman, which is when white shell girl becomes changing woman. And it's on her first menstruation, and there is this huge celebration, and the whole community is invited, and there is races, and there are sings, and there are opportunities for communication and making whoopee and whatever else goes on. And for an isolated community, that becomes something that binds the community together, but also it honors a girl who is now becoming a woman at a level that is a little bit better than what most of us in the white community have experienced, which is your mother told you about it and then you prayed it never happened, because it sounded so incredibly awful.
We have no rites of passage, really, still in this country. for women or men. And I think that's a real loss. You know, I studied anthropology for a while in college, and I was shocked to find out that these cultures have rites of passage, and we don't. And I think that's a tremendous loss. And so bringing in things like the red tent is very powerful, for, especially for younger girls. But then, like, I started doing women's circles when I was older, and I was already through that age. And I had no one, I had nothing like that. When I was a young menstruating woman, you know, I was in menopause before I started going into women's circles. So,
right. Well, and that's I think I touched on that for a minute earlier. But when I was a girl, and when my mother was when she was the one who was in her 30s instead of me, they had a women's group, and they had mother blessing ceremonies for the pregnant women, and they also had a coming of age ceremony for their daughters as a group. So I did that when I was about 12. My mother and her friends had a coming of age ceremony for all of their daughters at the same time, and then we had another one when my younger sister was about 12 too, and so I carried that little seed of that experience of seeing these mother blessings happen around me as a child, seeing other women have these ceremonies for my mother when she was pregnant with my siblings, and so then when I was pregnant with my first son in 2003, my mom kind of rekindled that, and she had a mother blessing ceremony for me then, and then I've carried that on from there. With the red tent experience being a desire to celebrate each phase. I'm thinking you don't have to be pregnant to have to sing and dance and share stories and really share and experience power with each other. We don't have to be pregnant for that. And local community, we've centered a lot around that experience of pregnancy and birth, and then we sort of neglected some of the other areas. And so this red tent work is my effort to broaden our scope and to really look at our whole lives instead of just one piece of our lives. And that's what led me to do the general women's circles and retreats that I did, and the Rise Up class and the Cakes for the Queen of Heaven class. And now the red tent is the newest, like, kind of outgrowth of that work. In, as I said, kind of an effort to broaden the offering to include more women, so they feel like they can still come, even if, you know, maybe they're not so interested in goddess spirituality as I am, but they can still come and feel like they belong in the circle of women. This experience is about women and women circling together and experiencing that power together, and it's sort of independent of like an external belief system.
So I want to honor your mother, by the way, for the fact that she gave you this background and this opportunity. Yes, your mother is great. Tell her I said so. Your mother.
Okay.
I say so.
Yeah, Catherine says so as well, and she's probably about our age as well. So, I mean, I was having my children.
62. Let's turn 62.
Oh, well, she's a baby.
How old are you?
62.
52? Oh my God. 62. That's very.
62.
62. That's still young.
She's still young. She's still just a baby. There's a little ageism here. You know, we managed to get this far. So anyway, but I want to honor her, and please tell her that we really appreciate what she's done, and that we, you know, would love to hear from her and have her as part of our gathering of priestesses, because she is obviously a priestess, and that she is a lovely priestess. And I'm sure that your daughters will be raised in this tradition as well, in a very open and honest way that will make a tremendous difference in their lives, and your sons as well, because being raised in this way, they see that women have value and see that women have an opportunity to change. So
absolutely, and I don't only do work with we have a full moon circle that I do with my son as well, and my husband. They all participate. they drum in the moonlight with me, you know, like it's great. And so I'm still working on myself in being able to do some coming of age, because I do have a son who's going to be 12 in September, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to get some like manhood ceremonies going on, or some boyhood type of honoring. But the women's work really speaks to me. It's hard for me to be like, okay, how can I branch out? So I'm trying to talk my husband into doing some manly rituals. We'll see what happens.
Starwolf's husband, Brad, up in Asheville, well, actually east of you in Asheville, used to do men's circles and men's organizations. That's from Oasis. And Brad passed on a couple of years ago. A year ago, I believe, and but I know that they are carrying on with their male rituals there, and they might be able to provide you with some additional information, and I know they'd love to have you bring it to Missouri. Brad was a wonderful individual, and Linda Starwolf is quite remarkable. So, you know, there is models out there for you.
Good.
Now, one of the things you're doing right now is you're getting ready to do a dissertation?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I've been working on my degree from Ocean Seminary College for quite a few years now, and I finally finished all of my coursework, and the only thing I have left is this dissertation. And I decided, I went through a couple of topics. I was going to write about birth and motherhood. I was going to write about birth as a creative or a spiritual experience, creative experience. And then I thought, wait a second, I want to look at practical priestessing. That's my dissertation subject. And it was another one of those woods experiences. I went to the woods and came back with the Womanrunes. I went to the woods and I came back with practical priestessing. That's what I'm writing about. And so what's really interesting to me is contemporary priestessing, primarily in the United States, because that's where I live, but I'm certainly interested in other people's experiences from other countries as well. But what I'm really, so how I boiled it down for myself is that what I'm really interested in is priestessing as a vocational path, priestess work as work, and I've noticed this priestess being used kind of almost as a buzzword term, you know, activate your inner priestess, or I even saw an ad once for, you know, take this class and become a high priestess of marketing mojo, you know, and I'm thinking, that's not quite the priestess work. I'm not talking about being a high priestess of marketing. I'm talking about priestess work as Ruth Barrett would say, who's scraping up the candle wax on the floor of the hall after everyone else has gone home. Like, that's the kind of priestess work I'm talking about. I'm interested, and that's not to minimize the word priestess as kind of an empowerment word or a sense of, you know, an inner sense of yourself, but I'm interested in what it looks like in the world. So I'm interested in vocational priestess work. How do you do it? How does it matter? Like, what is female religious leadership? What does it mean to be a priestess? What is this work? What are you doing when you say you're a priestess? And I want to know it in terms of vocational work. And so priestesses, ritualist, teacher, counselor, like, how are we priestesses in the world? Which is why your show is perfect. It's a perfect show. And the anthology, the stepping into ourselves, that's how I connected with you in the first place, was that anthology. That's perfect for my project. So, I'm sorry, I'm talking a little bit much here, but I've written, you know, I've spent 5 years working on this degree, and I've written all kinds of papers, and I've read all kinds of books, and I've really turned it over for myself. I've turned it over, I've looked at it, and I've been doing this work. I did a 6-month-long priestess practicum as part of my degree. I've really been, like, looking at it. And I have 300 pages saved on my computer of my starting dissertation. It's 300 pages long so far. And I thought, I don't need to talk to anybody else. I'll just work with what I have. I'll take these 300 pages and I'll go with it. And then I read the research on, you have to do a special request for doing research on human subjects, and I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to mess with that. And then I thought, I want to hear other women's voices. This isn't just about me and what I've experienced or what I've learned. I really want other women's voices and other priestesses' voices to come through in this project, because how I define it and my interest in scraping up the candle wax isn't necessarily what other people's experiences are. So I started, I had this Priestess Path Facebook group already, and I filled out my research on human subjects and got permission to do research with people instead of just in my books. And I opened the Priestess Path group up to women or priestesses who would like to participate in the dissertation research. And so I post questions on several times a week, I post questions in that group. And then it's completely fluid and flexible. If you want to only answer one question, you can only answer one question. There's no, just because you sign up doesn't mean you have to answer questions for me for 6 months now. You can go with one if you want to. And so I post questions in the Facebook group, and then the women in that group respond to the questions, and we dialogue back and forth about the questions. So I've asked questions about political, like the priestesses of political influence. I've asked questions about just demographic questions, where you are, and that kind of thing. We've talked about fear and priestess work, fear and leadership. Being put on a pedestal and falling off, about, being accused of witchcraft, those types of fears that women have when they step into this kind of the mantle of priestess. And we've talked about definitions of the priestess. We've talked about the types of roles, the types of work, how we might priestess all over the place, or carry the priestess into the world, carry our priestess selves into the world, even if, I teach on a military base, so even when I'm teaching on a military base, am I still a priestess there? Can you be a priestess without a circle? We've covered all those kinds of topics, and I'm so, so glad that I decided to open myself up to those other voices instead of just writing it from my own experience, because every question that I ask and every response that I get deepens this conversation into a more nuanced and rich, and just, it's so much bigger and better than it could have been if I was working on it by myself. And I'm really, really appreciative of everyone who's lent their voice to any of my questions. It's been amazing.
One of the things I want to recommend is that you might want to connect with Sharon Rose, which is a Sharon with 2 R's, Rose. She wrote a book called The Path of a Priestess.
Yes, I read it. I haven't connected with her, but I read it.
Okay, and she's also the CEO of a video program, I was trying to find out real quick what the name of it is, because I have no memory anymore. They just produced a movie called The Last Avatar. And so you might want to connect with her, because she's been sort of in this community for a very long time, and has the opportunity to introduce you to a lot of people that you might not answer your questions, but you would like to have answer your questions. Raven is our water priestess. She's the author of How to Create Sacred Water, so you might want to talk with her.
I think I heard you on Karen Tate's radio show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I knew I recognized your name, and I couldn't put it together, but I heard that presentation on the sacred water on Karen Tate.
Yeah. So we have, and Normandy Ellis and I have Invoking the Scribes of Ancient Egypt, and Normandy is brilliant. We adore Normandy. We think that she is the most undervalued asset, one of the most undervalued assets we have, and I know that she is doing priestessing work, I think this coming weekend in North Carolina, or the weekend after. There's a lot of people that you might want to reach out and maybe not have to have them answer all the questions, but have them answer a few of the questions to give depth to your program. And I did look at it, and I looked at some of the questions and some of the answers, and they looked fascinating. And for anybody who's interested in being part of that, how do they get into it?
If you search for Priestess Path Priestess Path on Facebook, it should come up, and you can request to join, and I'll approve your request to join.
Okay.
Or you can go from the link we sent out.
Okay, great. And so what do you have coming up now? Because we're coming towards the end of the show, and I want to know what have you got next?
Well, I do have, I was going to mention this earlier, I have a Womanrunes immersion e-course that's coming up in June. We're going to honor the birth of Womanrunes, which started, as I mentioned, on summer solstice in 1987. And so I'm launching this Womanrunes immersion e-course on summer solstice of this year, so June 21st of this year. And it's a 41-day e-course working with the Womanrunes and really serving as kind of a sacred pause, or like a timeout in your day to communicate with yourself, and to take a time out from all that hustle and bustle to kind of check in with the messages from the world around you, from your deep self, from your inner knowing, from the earth. And so we're going to take a 41-day Womanrunes journey. And then I also have a red tent initiation program coming up in July that I've developed that is based both on, again, we've talked several times about that inner and outer stuff. And so the Red Tent Initiation Program is both based on kind of an inner journey, but also in facilitating leadership skills and facilitating women's circles and red tents in your own community. So that's what that program is based on. And so both of those are coming up, one in June and one in July.
And you also have the imagery that is available on Brigid's, say the name of the website again.
It's brigidsgrove.com.
brigidsgrove.com.
And from there, you can also, our shop is on Etsy, so you can go to Etsy and just look for Brigid's Grove there, and that's where all the sculptures and the pewter work and the necklaces and all those good things are on Brigid's Grove, brigidsgrove.etsy.com as well.
Okay, and if anyone was interested in getting in touch with you, how would they go about doing that? Would it be through Brigid's Grove? If they wanted to get in touch with you?
Yes, that's fine. That Brigid's Grove website works, or they can. I have a personal blog that's Woodspriestess. It's goddesspriestess.com, and they can email me from that site as well at my woodspriestess@gmail.com.
That's WOODS Priestess. Mm-hmm. I know because I did Wood Priestess and it bounced.
Nope, Wood. Gotta have an S in there.
You have woods. Yeah, well, you live in a lovely part of Missouri, so I know that you have a lot of beautiful woods there. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight, and I want to wish you wonderful luck with your all your programs and all your things. I'm going to look for your Womanrunes and see what that looks like. That might be something we could include in the Becoming an Oracle program. And yes, definitely, thank you so much, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's really wonderful work.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all the leadership and all the wonderful things that you've contributed. And this program is really amazing and something that's really contributing a lot, I think, to the world. So thank you so much. And
well, thank you for being on it.
Nice to speak with you.
Okay, so Catherine, Raven, what do you have coming up? You're doing tarot readings?
I'm still doing tarot readings, and over there in the couch, I have edits for the remaining levels of my spiritual directions class that is on Mother House of the Goddess. So as soon as I get those edits done, all 4 levels will be available to people. Right now, level 1 is available. Doing that. Ann Key of Goddess Inc. is being my gracious editor, helping me chop up my baby into little pieces. And I'll be putting posting other classes on that as soon as I can get things written and done. Ann and I are doing the summer solstice ceremony, and then we're going to void of, and the moon is void of ceremony in July, so that would be very fun.
You're also doing something with water dancing or water ballet or water something?
Oh, yes. My friend Maria Chavez is a beautiful belly dancer, and she is directing her first little show. And at the end, she's dancing to a piece of music that was written for water. And she's going to have me come out and invoke her. So I'm invoking her dance as water, so that will be very fun.
Great.
I'm not dancing. I'm not a dancer.
And if someone needs a tarot reading right now, how could they get in touch with you?
The letter K and then ravenwood@yahoo.com.
And your website?
Catherine, that's Kathryn, ravenwood.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here and being my support.
Oh, it's my joy.
The program's technological support, we have no idea what she does, but without her, the show doesn't go on.
Well, you see, Molly, for many years, Gloria and I did a lot of work together, and she would go out literally into very strange places in the ethers, and I would have to anchor her down. And I remember one time I said, "You come back right now because I don't know how to tell your husband that I lost you out here. You get back here." I had to pull her back in like with a reeler. I think now we just still do that. I just anchor you down, Gloria, so you can go float around the ether wherever you need to go.
Well, speaking of floating around the ethers, I am planning on stepping into the Stargate out again.
Oh, good.
And we will start a step down from beyond the Stargate, and so that people who haven't had quite as much metaphysical training or quite as much of the programming will have an opportunity to step up to it and exploring the mysteries. I'm also looking at putting Wild Women into action again, which is a program that I did a number of years ago and have done several times, and trying to figure out how to do that in such a way that it's not so tame and controlled. You know, I'm always working on things, and of course I'm always working on this show. I spent all day today getting things lined up and ready to go for the next few shows. Our next show will be with Linda Fitch, who is one of the teachers for the Four Winds Society. She is a shaman teacher, shaman practitioner out of the Alberto Villoldo School that is out of Utah. And so we'll have an opportunity to hear a very different level of priestessing and programs that she does. And we have a number of other guests that are coming in the next few weeks. The week after Linda, we have Sandra Corcoran and Indigo Ronlove going to be on here. Sandra is a shaman who is going to be going to Egypt with Indigo. Indigo from, we know from Shamanic Journeys. And so we have a lot of interesting people, and we hope you will join us. If you've watched this on the replay, please know that we are always looking for interesting people, and we always want to answer your questions. So I've set it up in such a way that you can even ask questions from the replay. I'll get the email, and then I'll answer you. If you've registered for one of the shows, you'll get a notice for the upcoming shows. And we want to thank you for being present. We want to thank you, Molly, for being present. Thank you so much for your beautiful smiling face and for all your information. Thank you, Catherine, Miss Raven. I always love seeing you and the opportunity to speak with you. And thank you, all of you, whether you're hearing us right now or whether you're listening to us on the replay or listening to us on YouTube. Let us know that what we're doing is important to you. A Gathering of Priestesses is available on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. You can join it. You have to request to join it, but I will approve you, provided, of course, you are a woman and you know, you are interested in priestessing. No trolls, please. Anyway, love you very much. Hope you all are doing well. And until next week, this is A Gathering of Priestesses. See you then.